The January transfer window slammed shut at 11 p.m. on Monday, and many huge deals were finalised throughout the window and on deadline day. You got Rashford and Asensio to Villa, Matthias Tell to Spurs, big one there, Felix to AC Milan, Jeltz to Stuttgart, and Stefano Simas to Brighton, among many other deals as well. But today, we're going to be talking about a country and a league whose window shut last Friday. They love to splash the cash, that is Saudi Arabia. It's episode 16 of Midweek Fixture. I'm Louis Sellin, joined once again by Annabel, but no Manchester City talk today. It's all about the Middle East, so sit back, relax, and welcome back to Midweek Fixture. It's great to have you back, Annabel, for the second week in a row. I think this might be your 5th appearance on the channel.
Potentially, yeah, no, I've really enjoyed it. Love coming on, so yeah, 2 times in short space of time.
We love having you on. So how are you today?
Yeah, no, I'm all good. As we said, discussing an interesting topic of Saudi Arabia. Yeah, very important point at the moment, I think, to discuss, with the transfer windows obviously closing and with all the talk over sort of Saudi's aims for the next few years to sort of become more of a competitive league and, yeah, attract some top players, as we've seen they've managed to and have tried to during this transfer window.
So let's go all the way back to the start. I can't remember the year, unless you've got it down. It might have been 2022, 2021 with Benzema. One of the first to go over there. Sort of started that notion of the players moving over there. People were like, this is not going to get that big. We might have it for a year. But they've continued their raid of many, many top leagues. But let's start at the beginning. What was your initial thoughts when the Saudi Arabia situation come about?
Yeah, well, I think it's obviously a bit of concern. I know I've expressed that to you recently as well, of sort of the competition that Saudi can offer due to the fact that they are such a lucrative sort of, league. So, yeah, no, it's of concern, but also of interest, because obviously the players themselves are intrigued by the money that it brings and also just the different sort of nature that the competition is as well, because obviously there's questions over how competitive it is. But it's a different type of football, and obviously the fans over there will be very welcoming to any sort of top players who have obviously played. And as you saw right at the beginning, I think it was more elder players who were then finishing their careers, so it sort of gave them a new lease of life to earn some, a lot of money, but also to play in like a lower league that sort of suited their level where they were at the end of their career. So, no, at first it was interesting. But obviously it's sort of grown in concern with the names they've been linked with over this transfer window.
Yeah, I mean, any older players, so you got Benzema, we said, Ronaldo, Mane, Mahrez, the ones going over there, many others as well. Looking 28, 29, 30 pluses, secure the bag, 100%. I rate that. Anyone would accept that as you're coming towards the end of your career. A bit like how the MLS was.
Yeah.
Where they were bringing in the likes of Lampard, Gerrard. I believe Gerrard went there. Beckham, Zlatan, Rooney, all at the end of their careers.
Yeah.
Just to increase the viewership of the league, I suppose, and now they've got a lot of eyes on the league, a lot more than they used to. Now they've switched to bringing in the younger players, which they can then develop and sell. For example, Diego Gomez to Brighton happened in the January transfer window. Into Miami, brought him in for cheap, just sold him to Brighton for about 10, 15 million pounds, which might be something we see the Saudis do. It's kind of what we're seeing them do, but the money is astronomical compared to what the MLS teams are spending.
Yeah, for sure. There is that difference there, for sure.
So, another older player that went to Saudi Arabia, we're going to go on to him first, and then we'll come on in a second to the current transfer window that's just passed and future ones. We've got the whole Jordan Henderson situation. Obviously, there is stuff about Saudi Arabia that isn't the best, and it's been discussed a lot on social media and everything. It's not, in my opinion, a place for me to sit here and moan about them, because I've never experienced it. I've seen a lot of people who have been there say, actually, the media take it a bit too far and over the top. But Jordan Henderson went over there to try and put his mark on the league and get them to have a more open mind to how the Europeans view homosexual people, women, and people like that. But it didn't really work out for Jordan Henderson that way.
No, it didn't. I believe he left quite soon, no? And was commenting a lot about it. Yeah, and just saying it wasn't as competitive as he thought, and sort of the crowd attendances as well weren't what he was expecting. Because I think even as a player who's finished their career from, the high heights of playing for Liverpool in the Premier League and, the atmosphere and the attendances you get at Anfield, and as you said, Premier League and Champions League stadiums alike, it's then suddenly a big drop off, which I think as you said, you can only really experience it once you've been there yourself. But yeah, he's had a lot to say about it, and obviously left quite quickly to depart to Ajax. So I think it's individual experience, isn't it? But it's nice that he did he did want to sort of advocate for LGBT rights. But that is the sort of question I think you have over a lot of the tournaments that we've had recently in Saudi and Qatar is, can we actually change the sort of, nature of these cultures' beliefs, or is it that we maybe should exclude them? There's obviously that whole debate of whether, we're encouraging it or we're trying to educate whilst we obviously host tournaments there. But a lot of it is also to do with money. Naturally, I think that was an incentive of Henderson and his family. But yeah, soon found out it wasn't for him. But it's obviously not detracting every player, because there's been quite a few who've been interested in going to Saudi this transfer window.
Yeah, I think the whole with the Saudi Arabian culture,
Yeah.
I think we were too quick to go over and say, no, this is wrong.
Mm.
We should experience it first.
Yeah, I
and
think
then
so.
make a judgment. Because the first game that happened in Qatar, it was bang, we're going to straight go for them. Why not see what it is like first before you make that statement? Because again, a lot of people in Qatar were like, actually, as a woman, a lot of women were saying this, I felt really welcomed and enjoyed my experience over there. Maybe they did that so people don't put accusations out there. Can't say for sure. I don't want to throw stuff around.
No,
But
of course.
if they come over here, you'd expect them to respect our culture.
Yeah.
So we initially respect their culture, in my opinion. Like Jordan Henderson's gone over there, he's respected their culture, and he's tried to educate them. Obviously, didn't work out.
No.
But I think we're sometimes too quick to jump on other people like, no, you're wrong. And some of this stuff from Saudi Arabia, 100% is wrong.
Yeah.
The way they view people, 100% wrong. But give them a chance to.
Yeah. No, I think,
change.
as I said, it's about individual experiences as well. Because I know at the Qatar World Cup that someone went out with like a pride flag, and they were basically told by, officers that they couldn't take it into the ground. And I think there you're saying, we don't want to impose our own culture and our own beliefs, but there is a question of morality as well. Like, morally, I think it's questionable that you're gonna, berate people for who they love or for their, sexuality or whatever it is, their race. Because it's the same with religion. People want to be accepted, and same with race. We talk about discrimination as being a negative, but then when it's, certain cultures towards LGBTQ people, it's not the same. So it is tough, but as I said, it's individual sort of experiences. Obviously, Henderson tried, but it didn't necessarily work out. And that is obviously, as I said, the ongoing question of, when you actually get those experiences, do you then feel like you want to retract from being involved in tournaments involving these sorts of countries if we can't necessarily change what they believe and we think it's wrong? So it's about morals and your different views, really, as you said.
The big difficulty we have is Qatar was probably one of the best World Cups we've seen.
Yeah, that is another
In
thing.
terms of the football played, it was unbelievable.
But some things are bigger than football. That's another argument, isn't it?
The Argentina-France final was exceptional.
Yeah, no, it was.
Yeah.
What a
Qatar,
fairy tale ending, I think, for football as well with Messi. I think if you're not, even as an England fan, once England are out, you just want Argentina, or personally I did, I wanted Argentina to win for Messi.
But yeah, Qatar is another conversation for another day.
Yeah,
and I'm sure we'll be having more of these as more World Cups come throughout the years. But yeah, Henderson didn't work out. He come back after 6 months ago to Ajax, had to declare all of his wages, couldn't keep any of it, which was kind of funny.
Oh wow, I didn't know that.
Come back to Ajax, and I mean the whole situation with this window, him trying to force a move to Monaco, shows that maybe he's not the best person to have gone out there and shown his views and tried to change the culture. But hey ho, he tried, I suppose.
Yeah, no, he's been very outspoken, hasn't he, about the whole Monaco situation? Because there was a journalist who was being quite direct with him, and he's sort of said, I'm going to only tell you my side of things, but the journalists have got most of it wrong. So I think it's almost refreshing, though, to hear Jordan sort of being so direct to a journalist, because we don't see that as often now, where people call it out. Like I know Chloe Kelly recently with some public statements, and people think that's maybe not the right way to go about things. But I do feel like if the media cross a line, should players have their voices heard? I personally believe so. So for Jordan Henderson to speak out about the situation, saying he didn't want to leave and that he made the decision, there was no convincing of Ajax to keep him there, was interesting to sort of, criticise and correct almost the journalist. So, yeah.
Even though at the end he did stay at Ajax and the fans
exactly.
love him. So, but yeah. Moving on now, we'll talk about this transfer window. Saudi have obviously splashed a lot of money already, big fees.
Yeah.
But in terms of a move that happened, which was very interesting on many levels. So we had Boniface from Leverkusen,
Yeah.
24 years old.
Yeah, 24.
Very, very good for Bayer Leverkusen. Arguably one of the best strikers in the world last season.
Yeah.
Agree a 60, 70 million euro move to Saudi Arabia. Personal terms were done, medical was done. They then, Al Nassr agreed a deal for John Duran from Aston Villa. Whole package, 90 million euros. Done his medical, his contract, which we will get onto in a minute, ridiculous contract, and they decided to go with John Duran, a 21-year-old mega star already in the Premier League.
Yeah.
Wonder kid, scored some great goals for Villa. Second choice, I must say, for Villa. Moving on to Saudi Arabia at a young age. Where do you stand on that? What do you think of the move? And yeah.
Yeah, well, I heard that Boniface called Al Nassr a big club, which is obviously a big sort of statement when we're discussing Saudi and sort of the levels it can reach compared to the Premier League and Serie A, La Liga, you name it, sort of thing. Those European leagues, should we say. So that's a big statement from him, I think, to say that, because obviously there was interest in him by Al Nassr, and he said he was very sort of, what is the word? Very thankful, almost. It was an honour to be obviously called a great player and to be, given a bid of such high amount by Al Nassr. So that's interesting that he obviously ranks them quite highly. And he did almost allude to potentially going there in the future. He said at the moment, obviously, he's remaining with Bayer Leverkusen, but said he's not going to potentially turn that down in the future. So that, again, just indicates no matter how young or old you are, he's still got that in his mind of a consideration to go to Saudi. And, for me, I just think it's interesting because of where he's from. I believe that Deji Faremi, who's a sports analyst, he was basically saying that where, Boniface is from and sort of, just that, it's that he obviously got an interest in Saudi and it's understandable. And the fact that also, I think a big appeal of Saudi to Boniface and to lots of players is you can't always be consistently like a top player. So to confirm a signing with Al Nassr, that amount of money you're going to be getting and that contract for however many years, that almost secures you a position which you wouldn't already be guaranteed. So like with Bayer Leverkusen, it's not to say that he might then drop in form. And then there's almost a question over he could have gone to Saudi while he was given that opportunity, if you understand what I mean. So there is a big sort of incentive there for players, which I didn't really consider till I read that report and heard the sports analyst saying that you've got to consider where players are from, sort of their background, and this attraction of money and a deal and that sort of comfort of knowing that you're going to be able to play for a team if you did drop off form is, a big comfort to them. So it's interesting to consider that with Boniface, and obviously that interested him. But then I believe Al Nassr sort of dropped the sort of deal and it sort of faded away, and obviously they decided to go for the younger John Duran.
Yeah, the money aspect is always the big part. We'll talk about that first, and then we'll get on to Duran's comments, which sort of counteract that. So, the big thing about the Saudi Arabian wages is untaxed.
Yeah, that is another big thing, yeah.
So, you've got Duran, he's 21 years old, he's on 50k taxed a week at Aston Villa. Yeah. He's then been offered 300k untaxed at Al Nassr.
Yeah.
You're going to take it.
Yeah. No, it's understandable. I think it sets, as you said before to me, you've said it sets your family up for life as well as yourself. Yeah. So that's, a big incentive as well.
But yeah, think about it. If he's on 300k a week, he's on 1.2 million quid a month. Across the year, he's looking at, about 15 million pound? If he stays, plus he'll get branding deals, extras and everything else like that. You look at, he stays there for 3 years. If he stays there for 3 years, he'll only be 24. He would have guaranteed himself a minimum of 45 million pounds. He can then come back to Europe.
Yeah.
At the age of 24 and
potentially
continue.
As well. Yeah, you're right, because he's actually quite young. Obviously, I thought that was a concern of, we're talking about Saudi and potentially the attraction it's going to have that pulls these players away at such a young age now as well. But as you said, he could even return after.
Yeah, because the Saudi league itself is rated, I think, 60th best league in the world, which is like on par with the third division in Italy or the second division in Italy. Yeah. So the competitive
nature
aspect there for fans is not there. But Duran's comments were really interesting, what he said.
Oh, okay.
That he wanted to move to a competitive league and he saw Saudi Arabia as one of the most competitive. And it wasn't about the money.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that's an interesting part to it. I mean, that was what the sports analyst was also saying. because Faremi was saying, there were questions basically in this article that I read about how it might not help Boniface, if we're going back to him, his opportunity to play in the Nigerian team, because even with Osimhen out, basically he hadn't been performing, and they're saying if you go to Saudi, you're then not even putting in good performances, but you're also not competing at the top level, so that might not help him with his ploy to get back into the Nigerian squad. But then actually, the analyst was just saying that actually Saudi's quite a top league, and that we've seen obviously a lot of players like Ronaldo go there, and they've still managed to become important or remain important members of their international sides. So there's almost a question there now of, can you still compete, as we've seen with Kante and Ronaldo, in your international squads if you join Saudi? So for Boniface, obviously that was argued by Faremi that he could still do that, which is another positive. As you said, it's not just the money, it is potentially of quite a good quality as well.
Yeah, but you said, and a lot of other people said, that Saudi is a threat to the Premier League.
Yeah.
But is that not what the Prem is to other leagues?
Of course, yeah, it's that dog-eat-dog sort of mentality, that sort of cycle we have. It's a circle of life, isn't it? You have smaller animals getting eaten by bigger animals, but that's obviously not the best analogy, but it is that sort of concept of you've got a league, and then you've got a league which is slightly more competitive or slightly more attractive due to the deals that they have. So, yeah, for the Premier League, it was obviously, I would say, top. But then you've obviously now got this new question of Saudi because of the money.
Yeah, but I think the Premier League also needs to take it as a compliment that Saudi wants all their players.
Yeah, no, of course. That's the whole attraction, I think, for the Saudi fans, is bringing over these big names who have competed at the top level, because that's what makes them the big names. As you said, it's a compliment to the Premier League, for sure.
Yeah. But then moving on to a deal that didn't happen, two deals that didn't happen very, very late on in the window. We'll start with the Kudus, because there's not much on that. It was quite a brief report, said that apparently Al Nassr missed out on their first choice target, which we'll get in a minute.
Yeah.
And they made a move for Kudus, swiftly rejected by West Ham. Yep. Unsure whether he wanted to go. It perhaps seems like he would have wanted to go.
Okay.
Considering a lot of other African players do like the appeal of Saudi Arabia. Yeah. And again, you're not going to turn down, many players will not turn down that sort of money. No. But the fact that Premier League clubs are now rejecting the big offers, does that restore some hope that it's not going to be a threat?
Potentially, yeah. I think it's about, as you were saying, because I said about Isak and whether he's worth 150 million, but you're saying he is worth that to the club. It's the value that they give you at the time. And that's what we're seeing, is a lot of these Premier League clubs are potentially going to rule out players going even for big money because of their own sort of incentive to keep that player, because of how big they are and the prospects that they give them. So, yeah, for Kudus and West Ham, I think they didn't want to depart one another. Potentially Kudus did more so than West Ham. But, yeah, for them to rule that out, it does show hopefully some hope. But, no, I think for West Ham, he's so crucial. I believe he's not having as good of a season as prior, but they're hoping for him to be more crucial going forward and to almost hit former higher heights with obviously their new manager. And his mind has evaded me.
Graham Potter,
that's the one. I wanted to say something else with a G, but Graham Potter, yeah, of course. So, but them in 14th, and I believe they've got quite a few injuries. They're hoping that their attacking players, including obviously Ghanaian midfielder Kudus, can step up. So, yeah, that's why they probably held on to him for sure.
Yeah. And then we move on to the first choice target for Al Nassr. The club, Al Nassr, confirmed, the bid was rejected by Brighton and the player himself. It started with a €65 million offer for Mitoma, immediately rejected. It then went up to 71 million. 90 million euros.
Crazy.
But apparently with 5 million add-ons, but the original package was about 60 million.
Okay.
Brighton said, no, not for sale. Mitoma was like, no, I don't want to go. I want to stay at Brighton, which is great to hear.
Yeah, exactly.
And I'm glad that he rejected it. But the fact that they offered it a day before their window closed and 3 days before the English window closed is a bit stupid. Because Mitoma's arguably our best player. We were never going to let him go for that, especially that late in the window.
Yeah, that's true. I think maybe it was, as you said, like a bit of a... Well, I guess he was their first target, you said. So it's not a rush for them to, have to find that second option quickly. So they did leave it quite late. But almost, I think, maybe that was their sort of tactic in terms of catching Brighton off guard. And they might just say, if the player wants to go, that's a lot of money for us to take into our club. But I'm glad on both parties that they didn't want to go. Because, as you said, Mitoma's a big asset to Brighton. And for himself, he said he wants to compete. It's more about competition for him and being at the top level rather than the money, which is nice and refreshing to hear, I'd say.
Yeah. I mean, personally, I'm surprised we said no to £90 million for a
Yeah,
27, 28-year-old. But another risk, I think, of Premier League clubs rejecting these massive offers from
yeah,
Saudi is it could really impact the transfer window. If we're turning down £90 million for a 28-year-old,
yeah.
how much is a 24-year-old going to cost now?
That is very true. That's a very good point, and especially because of the money as well. It's like not many clubs can afford that. So are players ever going to go? Because otherwise, you're questioning why don't we let them go to Saudi if we're going to let them go for cheaper to other clubs who can obviously only afford that much. So yeah, I'm not entirely sure. Obviously, there is a different attraction for players. So while you've got such a high bid for Mitoma of like 90 million from Saudi, you might have an offer that which is less, but that he's more interested in from a club in Europe. So there's lots of different questions over that, I think.
I do understand another aspect, really positive
Yeah.
aspect of Matoma is the fan base that he will bring over. He
Oh,
is adored. He's like a god in Japan.
yeah.
We have so many Japanese fans come over to Brighton, which is fantastic. He's without a doubt our highest shirt seller,
Oh, wow.
guaranteed.
Yeah.
Every week there's a new Japanese fan over there. People saying they travel literally in 2 days over and back just to watch Brighton
Wow.
play.
Yeah.
The global appeal is there, which will bring in even more money to Saudi Arabia.
Mm. That is true.
But
Yeah, I see that with City as well. Actually,
yeah,
whenever I go to the matches, you hear at the West Stand they do sort of like pre-match entertainment, and there are fans from Norway, from Sweden, from all over, and it is just that global sort of attraction when you have those top players. So that's wonderful to see from obviously, as you said, Matoma, and that may have also, as you said, sort of interested Saudi because of the amount of fans that he would bring, obviously from Japan.
but yeah, we don't want to do a too long one for you today because we done the last ones for an hour and 40 minutes. We'll keep it
Yeah.
pretty short and sweet today. Just we'll end on what do you think the future is for the Saudi football? Do you think they'll continue to build and have their big global appeal, make it a competitive league?
Yeah.
Do you think that'll happen? Do you think there will be a bigger threat to the Prem, or do you think it will sort of tail off and they'll work in unison?
Good question. Just lastly, as well, on that Matoma sort of situation, apparently there are questions that Al Nassr is sort of being pressured by Ronaldo because he's going to be 40 this week, I think.
Yeah,
And obviously, he is a top athlete. He wants to play for years, and even as he said, moving to Saudi, it was still to win trophies and titles. And I think, but them not doing that with, I think it's Al Hilal, like the top team in Saudi at the moment. He's almost asking Al Nassr if they can invest in younger and top talent. So perhaps that was the appeal as well
yeah,
for Al Nassr, is obviously Ronaldo maybe telling them behind the scenes, I want you to sign certain players.
yeah,
Yeah, who knows? Ronaldo is such a big factor, I think. Even the
yeah,
players as well might be motivated to join Saudi so they get to play
yeah,
alongside a great like Ronaldo, and obviously you've got other players over there, as you said, like Benzema.
yeah.
Um,
100%.
so that's the last thing. But no, with that big question, it's very difficult to say because it is still, in my eyes, it's in its infancy. Like the last few seasons, it's more so, as you said, been a retirement home. But there's now this incentive, as you said, for younger players and to develop them and even make more money by selling them on, as you mentioned at the beginning of this podcast. So it's hard to know whether that is going to actually happen and come into fruition. And as you've said as well, we've discussed clubs turning down these big money moves as well. So it's not necessarily the players alone get to choose these moves, which will be very attractive to them due to the money. It's also the clubs. So I'm not thinking it will be as much as a threat as I originally was concerned about. But it is a growing threat, with the age and the sort of they're targeting young stars, who I personally, this is where I started to get concerned and I talked to you, is when that whole Duran story came out. I didn't want him to go and I never understood why at such a young age with such talent. I thought he's brilliant for Villa, especially he's been a few, Champions League key moments for them. I think, why would you go at 21 to Saudi? But then, as you said, he might then get money, and then he might also come back. Never know, back to Europe. But yeah, for that it is a concern, but I don't think we're going to see it as much as I originally thought. Perhaps there'll be a few, and it will obviously attract players away from the Premier League because of the money side of things. But still, I don't think it's going to be a massive concern because the dream, I think, for every player now, and obviously more so as well back years ago, is to play in the Premier League. That is the pinnacle of football, and potentially, other leagues, the Italian league, Spanish league, whatever league it is that you sort of are attracted to, it's what you've grown up watching. So I think until Saudi has been long-standing and people have watched it for long enough, I know Duran said he'd been watching Al Nassr as a kid. There are questions over the truth in that, but either way, it is a dream for players to play in the Premier League, more so I'd say than Saudi. So
Yeah.
I don't think it's going to be too much of a concern, but it does seem to be growing in that way of attracting those young players away from the Premier League.
Yeah. Well, I mean,
Makes
my
sense.
views, I think Premier League clubs are going to love Saudi.
Mm?
Because if they've got any FFP issues, they can be like,
Yeah.
yeah, call the Saudis up. Oh, we've got this player, 60 mil? Yeah, we'll have him, 60 million.
I
Give
get you,
us
that
a
will
name.
help them out. Yeah,
And
potentially.
I think it's a great thing to discuss as journalists. And there was
Mm.
also, we're always going to have positive and negative aspects as journalists towards Saudi. But I think just as football fans ourselves, we have to appreciate that Saudi Arabia wants to grow the game of football in their own country.
Yeah. Yeah, no, that is
They
true.
want they want football to become massive in Saudi Arabia. That's why they're bringing these players. They also want to have the World Cup, another big debate there, and they're offering ambassador roles to older players during the World Cup,
Okay.
which is
Yeah.
also another incentive. But just on the base of it, the fact they want to grow football can't be a negative thing, surely.
No, I mean, it depends. I think the culture aspect is a big, obviously, question for the players who go over there. And, if you're asking for Premier League players to then go abroad, there is going to be the media who then obviously discuss the implications of players who are obviously committed to, whilst you're here, you had the stamp it out, the racism sort of anti-racism campaigns that we have in this country, the LGBT sort of pride weekends that we have. And if you're then looking at these players who have committed to that while they've been in England, then potentially making that move, I think the media is a big, not problem. I think it's coverage. It's discussing the topics away from football that also need to be covered when you're talking about transfers to Saudi. That will potentially be sort of a big standpoint. Because as you're saying, yeah, it's good they want to grow football, but there are implications of that. If Saudi are trying to grow football and bring top players over, you've got to question the fact that it's also the culture that the players are moving into, and whether that is morally correct and whether people can support that or not. As much as we want football to grow and everywhere, and I love that football fans in Saudi want it to be that way, and obviously the owners and the people who have the power want it to be that way as well, there is obviously a question of the culture that surrounds them and where those players will live, etc. And that quickly brings me on to a point about Duran, I believe, who said he wants to live in Bahrain, which is similar to Gerrard. Gerrard doesn't live in Bahrain, but he lives again outside of Saudi Arabia in another place. So he's going to commute apparently on a plane. It's like 800 or 300 miles, not sure on the figure, but it's in the hundreds. And that just demonstrates that the players don't even, maybe want to live in Saudi due to the rules about marital status. I know that obviously Ronaldo is allowed to live there with his girlfriend, even though they're not married, but usually you're not allowed to live in Saudi together, like cohabit, if you're not married. So again, if we're talking about culture, there are obviously questions over that, and players who have actually moved to Saudi still haven't made the commitment to live in Saudi. So potentially that is a problem with obviously Saudi trying to grow the league and attract players is the culture that they also have.
Yeah, I think if you want to change the culture, football
Yeah.
is a good place to start with it.
Mm.
The fact they're willing to change the rules for Ronaldo,
Yeah, exactly.
they may be willing to change the rules. Full stop.
Yeah, but then again, it's like if you change the rules for one global superstar because you want him and the money and everything, it's
You
like,
can't care that much about the rules.
no, I know, but it's like think about every other civilian. It's not
Yeah.
just the one star you want to attract to your country.
Yeah.
You're allowing the rules for him, but not for everyone else. So
Yeah.
we'll see if it changes, as you said, over time.
I think there's a chance it could, but again,
Yeah.
I said I don't want to be one to go off on a big rant about them because I haven't experienced it. I don't think it's right for me to have a moan about it from what I don't know from a personal perspective. Whereas the same, I don't think it would be right for a Saudi Arabian to have a moan about our culture if they haven't experienced it.
Exactly. No, I do agree with you. Naturally, from sort of a surface level standpoint, that's all I can offer is a bit of my opinion. But mostly,
Yeah,
obviously, I
100%.
am uneducated like you. We don't know everything, so it's hard for us to comment. And I hope that obviously Saudi Arabian people wouldn't comment on our culture either. So yeah, that's a good point to make.
But yeah, I think that is it for today. Little half an hour on Saudi Arabia. I'm sure it will be a big topic over the next few weeks, months, probably years. They've got a World Cup, I think, or they're close to getting a World Cup.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
So that'll be interesting to see. I mean, it's probably the fact that there's so much negative political aspect probably means it's going to be one of the best football World Cups we've ever seen. Same with Qatar.
Potentially.
But yeah, thanks for coming on, Annabel. The
No
videos
worries at all.
now, because of uni schedule, some of them have been recorded Wednesday morning, so it's been very up to date on it. But because the uni schedule's changed now, they'll be recorded Mondays or Tuesdays, or perhaps even the weekend. So there might be little things that are slightly out of date by the time the video comes out, but not much can be done about that for now. But yeah, I shall see you next week for. I'm not entirely sure. We've got some guests lined up in the near future. A German supporter of mine's potentially coming on.
Hey.
A St. Pauli fan that lives over here that does a lot of charity work, hopefully coming on. And yeah, I shall see you all next week. Thanks for coming again, Annabel. Really enjoyed having you on. Great conversation.
No worries. Thank you so much. And they sound great, those upcoming videos.
Yeah, we look forward to them. And of course, more vlogs coming soon. We are looking at some. Of course, the lovely Annabel will be there again. We love having Annabel on the vlogs.
Yeah, happy to be here. Thank you.
But everyone knows the outro by now. It's episode 16. Come on, you should know. 16 videos in. Well, more than that, because of the vlogs.
True.
Adios.